The anti-terror bill that has sailed past the third and final reading at the House of Representatives is not against activism. A lawmaker said Thursday. This measure that has been passed in the Senate and Congress is not anti-activism. It is for the prevention of terrorist attacks in our country because in the last 2 years, and in the last 20 years in fact, our country has had a lot of terrorist attacks, but we do not have enough law to prevent such terrorist attacks to happen again, said Rep. Jericho Nograles. Nograles clarified some provisions in the bill that many find unconstitutional. He also allayed fears that ordinary citizens posting criticism against the government can be arrested when the bill, which President Rodrigo Duterte certified as urgent, becomes a law. Absolutely not. That is the freedom of expression we want to support. The constitutional rights of people. What we're trying to do here in fact that activists are free to voice their dissent. To voice their concerns without the threat of terrorism on themselves and our country, he said. The controversial House Bill 6875 passed during the lower chamber's session on Wednesday, with 173 House members voting yes, 31 voting no, and 29 abstentions, seeks to amend the Philippines' current anti-terrorism laws. If it becomes a law, the government will be authorized to wiretap suspects, arrest them without warrants and hold them without charge for 14 days. Among other provisions, it is a judicial action. The Anti-Terrorism Council cannot order a wiretap without the Court of Appeals in ordering them the same. Kailangan ng Court of Appeals bago magkaroon ng wiretap, Nograles however claimed. Nograles also explained that the Anti-Terrorism Council is an existing council under the Human Security Act of 2007. As far as the power of the council is concerned, the council can designate persons or individuals as terrorists if they are already designated by the UN Security Council. It is a matter of adoption of the UN Security Council list of terrorists around the world. Second, if there is evidence that is presented to the council that a person or a group of person may be terrorists as defined by this law, he said. He also stressed that under the bill, not just any law enforcement agents can arrest and detain anyone. They have to have direct order from the council first. The Anti-Terrorism Council is not allowed to effect an arrest if they do not have convincing evidence to ask for that said arrest. This is actually a supplemental law to other laws including Rule 113 which covers warrantless arrest, he said. Nograles likewise explained that this is the only arrest where the arresting officer will immediately inform the judge of the nearest court, the Commission on Human Rights, the lawyer and doctor. When you are wrongfully detained you can seek damages for that. Kasama na yan sa wrongful arrest you can go for habeas corpus. If the government is not being clear as to why they think you're being arrested, then you can also ask for the writ of habeas data. There are lots of civil rights and liberties that are present and we are not trying to destroy any civil right or liberty, he said. He said that the Senate has removed the P500,000 per day reparation for wrongful detention and this has been adopted by the House from the Human Security Act of 2007 where there is a strict P500,000 per day. It was deemed not equitable. I think it is more equitable to go back to the default which is Section 32 of the Civil Code, he said. Meanwhile, Nograles said the president may sign the bill into law or may veto certain provisions or the whole bill itself. He can also let it lapse into law. But he said if the bill is signed into law, the issues raised against it can be addressed with clarity in the implementing rules and regulations. Manila, Philippines. The vilification of dissent and attacks against perceived critics of the Philippine government are being increasingly institutionalized and normalized in ways that will be very difficult to reverse, the United Nations Human Rights Office said Thursday. In a report that looked into the human rights situation in the Philippines, the UN agency said human rights advocacy and activism are routinely equated with insurgency. It stressed that red tagging, or labeling individuals and groups as communists or terrorists, has been a persistent and powerful threat to civil society and freedom of expression. The focus is diverted to discrediting the messengers rather than examining the substance of the message. This has muddied the space for debate, disagreement and for challenging state institutions and policies, the report read. In October 2019, Human rights monitor Karapatan told Philstar.com that more individuals and organizations have been subjects of red tagging since President Rodrigo Duterte signed Executive Order 70, which created the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. The group said red tagging by government forces is usually followed by threats through electronic or physical means, surveillance and harassment, arbitrary or illegal arrest and detention, or torture. In some cases, red tagging also translates to enforced disappearances and even killings. People who disagree with government policies and criticize them, including in international fora, should not be vilified as terrorist sympathizers, UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet said. She is expected to report her office's findings to the UN Human Rights Council session in Geneva later this month. The controversial anti-terrorism bill is now up for Duterte's signature after the House of Representatives passed Wednesday the proposed measure, which is feared to infringe on people's freedom of association and expression. Militarization. The UN Human Rights Office also stressed that the joint operations of police and military in Negros Island and other areas where additional uniformed personnel were deployed may have resulted in serious human rights violations. It said the effect of the militarization, coupled with the long-standing presence of armed groups and the pressure by landed elites and large business project, is dire on indigenous and farming communities. Indigenous peoples should not be victims of tug-of-war between the state, non-state armed groups and business interests, Bachelet said. The report added the Philippine government has increasingly filed criminal charges against social media users posting criticisms on the government's policies and actions using COVID-19 special powers law. The UN report, as mandated by the UN Human Rights Council last year, also looked into the human rights violations in the context of the government's anti-drugs campaign. Despite credible allegations of widespread and systematic extrajudicial killings in the context of the campaign against illegal drugs, there has been near impunity for such violations, the report said. In a statement, the Ecumenical Voice for Human Rights and Peace in the Philippines said the report is a damning indictment of its non-compliance with principles, standards, instruments and Convention on Human Rights. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and just click the bell notification below for new videos and updates. Thank you for watching. See you on my next video.